Hello and welcome to the second part of this lecture on tone of the author. So in the first video, we talked about what tone is, how to detect tone in writings of different kinds. In this video, we will talk a bit more about what are the various words that we could use to describe the tone of the author. Let me share the screen and then we will proceed. I hope the screen is visible to you. Let me go to the slideshow mode. Yes. So some words to describe the author's tone are these. Apologetic, when the author seems to be sorry about something. Appreciative, when the author supports something, when the author agrees that something is a good idea or something is a good performance, then the tone would be appreciative. Concerned, if the author seems to be worried about something or anxious about something, then the tone would be a concerned tone. Critical, if the author does not agree with something, if the author uh, thinks that something is not right, if the author uh, thinks that something should be done to improve the situation, then the tone would be a critical tone. Curious, the author would style his or her writing in such a way that it would be evident that the person wants to know more about the subject or the idea that he or she expresses. Then defensive. If the author defends a stance, then the tone would be a defensive tone. Direct, if the author is straightforward in expressing something, if the author is honest, if the author doesn't want to hide anything, then the tone is a direct tone. Disappointed, if the author is discouraged from doing something because of something else, and this is what he or she expresses in the writer, then you would say that the tone is a disappointed one. If the author is sad because something has happened which he or she did not expect, then the tone could be a disappointed tone. Encouraging, when it's a positive tone, of course, and when something has happened which makes the author feel encouraged, then that will be expressed in the style which he or she uses. Or if the author wants to encourage others, then that feeling will also be evident in the style. Enthusiastic, if there is a lot of energy in what the author is trying to express, and if the author is excited or happy about what he or she is talking on, then we would say that the tone is enthusiastic. Formal, if the author is respectful towards something, if the author is aware that the situation demands a formal tone, then of course the tone will be formal, and you can tell that looking at the kind of language that is employed. Frustrated, the author is disappointed at not being able to do something, and that is the feeling expressed in the writing, then you would say that the author expresses a frustrated tone. Hopeful, it is a positive word, and when there is hope and that you can feel while you are reading something, then you would definitely say that the author employs a hopeful tone, that things are going to be better. Humorous, of course, if you laugh or you feel good while reading something, you feel amused while reading something, then of course the author has employed a humorous tone. Now, we must remember something. It's not that if the tone of the author is humorous, then it is always true that the audience will laugh. Sometimes the humorous tone of the author might make the audience angry. Okay, if they do not agree with whatever the author is saying, or if they do not understand why the author says something in such a way, or if they feel strongly about the subject and they see that the author has dealt with it in a very light tone, which he or she shouldn't have, then the tone of the author is humorous, but the reader doesn't take it in that way, and a different kind of response is brought into the reaction of the reader. So that takes us to an important topic, tone versus mood, which we will be talking about in a short while. Then informal. If the author uses such words which tell you that the situation is an informal situation, maybe between friends, between relatives, between family, then you can perceive that the tone is informal. Inspirational, if the author writes in such a way that it inspires you to bring about a positive change in yourself, then we will say that the tone of the author is inspirational. Ironic, if the author means something else, if the author means something which is totally different, or if it is totally opposite to what is being said literally, then we would say that the tone is ironic. Judgmental, if the author, while talking about a subject, expresses his or her opinions or gives some kind of judgment on that subject or on a particular person that they are talking about, then you would say that the tone is judgmental. Then light-hearted. If the author seems carefree, or if the author seems happy about something, then you would say that the tone is light-hearted. Mocking, if the author is making fun of something or someone, then you would say that the tone is a mocking tone. Negative, you can sense, you can feel when there is a negative tone in a write up, looking at what words the author has chosen, how the author has put whatever he or she is saying, that would tell you that this particular writing has a negative tone. Then objective, whenever the author provides some information or talks about some truth, then the tone is bound to be objective. That is impersonal. The author does not bring about, his or her personal choices or opinions into the writing. Then the writing would be objective. Optimistic and pessimistic, that it's similar to optimistic has a positive tone and pessimistic has a negative tone. Optimistic, hopeful tone, and pessimistic, a tone where it seems all is lost, there is no hope, that kind of a tone. Then sarcastic tone would be when the author, mm, doesn't agree with whatever is happening, when the author is strongly critical of whatever is happening, or strongly critical of the subject that is dealt with in the sentence or the paragraph, then the tone is sarcastic. Sentimental tone when the author expresses strong emotions or feelings, when the author seems to be overwhelmed while talking about the subject, then we would say that the tone is sentimental. Sincere when the author expresses views in such a way that you can tell the sincerity of the author in talking about this subject. You can tell that the author feels strongly about this subject, and that's why they are talking about it. So that you can tell that the tone is sincere. Then sympathetic, when the author seems compassionate, when the author seems to understand how others feel, when the author seems to make the readers understand how others feel, then the tone of the author would be called the sympathetic tone. All right. So there are so many different words which you can use. These are just some examples to give you an idea of what tone of the author is and how we can detect the tone of the author in any writer that we read. Then, if we are talking about cues, then we must look at some examples as to, yeah, you know, determine what the tone of the author is. Let me just read these sentences and you will understand what tone is employed in each of them. The first one, oh, I miss my school days. So you will understand that the tone is nostalgic and loving. The person who is saying this, of course, loved his or her school days. They enjoyed school days and they are nostalgic about those days. They want to go back to those days, which of course is impossible. But then, this is what nostalgia is all about, wishing to go back to the past because it was a good place to be. Suppose someone says, thank God I'm not a schoolgoer anymore. What is the tone now? Of course, it is a critical tone. This person didn't enjoy his or her school days. Probably something happened which made school days for this person unbearable. Maybe this person did not enjoy the restrictions that were put on him or her as a youngster, and that is why the person feels relieved that the school days are gone. So this is an example of a critical tone. Then if someone says, alas, I didn't use my time well when I was in school. What kind of a tone is this? Gloomy, sad, repentant. The person feels sorry that he or she didn't use the time well during school days. The person wasted time, and that is why maybe the person is suffering right now. That is why the tone is gloomy or sad or repentant. Okay. Then this is what I was talking about. There is a difference between tone and mood. Tone is the author's attitude or feelings towards a subject, and mood is the reader's attitude or feelings towards the same subject. Right? So how then are tone and mood different? Sometimes the author's tone may coincide with the reader's mood, but in other times they might be completely different. And that is where the difference between mood and tone becomes important. Suppose the writer says, school days are the best days of one's life. So, what is the author's tone here? The author is appreciative of school days. The author appreciates those days and feels that they are the best days of one's life. Now, the reader's mood can either be appreciative or sarcastic, depending upon their own experiences in school. Suppose you also believe that school days are the best days, then you will agree with this sentence, and the mood and the tone are the same. The tone of the author and the mood of the reader are the same. But if you are a person for whom school days were unbearable, some traumatic incidents happened when you were in school, or you hated being told always what to do and what not to do, then when you read this, you would not agree with the author, and your reaction would be sarcastic. You would say, no, no, school days are not the best days of one's life. Then the reader's mood is different from the author's tone. The author's tone is appreciative, but the reader's mood is sarcastic. Okay, so that is how we must be aware of the difference between tone and mood. Now, I have three sentences for you, and I would ask you, while I read out these sentences, can you detect the tone of these sentences? First one, we cannot invite others to celebrate your birthday because of the pandemic, says Mrs. Das to her daughter, Sheila. Do not forget to wash your hands often. Eat plenty of nutritious foods and avoid going out to prevent having COVID-19. Ravi warns his younger brother, Raj. Don't you feel that education is incomplete without the inclusion of an ethics and values subject in the curriculum? The teacher asks. So, what do you think are the tones employed by the writers of these three sentences? Just take a minute to think, and then I will tell you the answers. The mood in the first sentence is anxious or frustrated. How? Anxious in this sense. The mother is anxious that her daughter might be feeling bad, and she's trying to explain to her daughter why they cannot invite others to celebrate her birthday. So she's anxious, thinking about her daughter's reaction. She's also anxious thinking about what would happen if they do invite others to celebrate her daughter's birthday. She can also have a frustrated tone. How? If the mother wants to have a party, is interested to throw a party for her daughter, but because of the continuing situation of the pandemic, she is not able to do it. So she can also express frustration. We cannot invite others to celebrate your birthday because of the pandemic, says Mrs. Das to her daughter, Sheila. Okay. Then the second sentence employs a tone of urgency. There is urgency in the way Ravi warns his younger brother, Raj, these are the things you must do if you want to prevent having COVID-19. Okay, so it is a tone of warning or urgency. All right, caution. The one boy cautions his younger brother. Okay, then in the third sentence, the tone is one of suggestion or persuasion. The teacher wants to persuade maybe the members of a committee that ethics and values as a subject should be included in the curriculum. Or maybe the way she asks this question, maybe she's trying to suggest that this could be done in future. Maybe she doesn't want to have a persuasive tone, but she wants to suggest that this could be a good idea. Okay, so this is how we decide the tone of the author, looking at the specific language features that he or she has used. Okay, so that was all about tone. I hope you learned what the tone of the author is, and I hope the next time you read something, you will be aware of what the author is trying to express, the emotions, the attitudes of the author towards the subject. So that was all about the tone of the author. Thank you.